Today on Locked On Red Wings, is Dan Campbell going to be the next motivational speaker for the Detroit Red Wings and previewing the game against the Nashville Predators?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. I hosted Tuesday's edition of the Daily J. We talked about the pilot shortage. So go ahehead and go listen to that on the Odyssey app. The pilot shortage.
Yes. Very prevalent today, yes.
And go ahead and listen to that at the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. And Scotty's a host of Locked On Tigers as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And I'm mostly joking about talking about the Dan Campbell motivational speaker guys in the cold open.
It is funny, though.
It is just funny. And we'll open the show and, shoot the crap about it for a couple minutes here. But Derek Lalonde came out and said that he'd love to have Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Detroit Lions, come in and be a motivational speaker to fire up the boys before a Red Wings game because Derek Lalonde, who's going to the Thanksgiving game, obviously noted what we've all known about Dan Campbell for a while, and that he has a type of charisma to just get the men fired up in the locker room. So I thought that was just more or less just funny anecdotal nonsense out of the Detroit Red Wings organization this week.
Yeah, for sure. So it's just funny. Like on Lalonde came out and said that his favorite football team is the Bills because, I don't know.
Yeah, he went to the Bills game when they went and played Buffalo.
Right. So he's a Buffalo Bills fan, but now that he's coaching in Detroit and whatnot, he says that the Lions are his favorite NFC team and all that. And he obviously, he's part of the Detroit culture now and everything.
He has to like them.
Right. So
he'd be fired.
He said, I don't know about that, but he did say that that he's going to the Thanksgiving game, like his two favorite teams, right? And yeah, he just kind of threw out there. He was just like, once the Lions season is over, he really wants Dan Campbell to go in there and talk to the boys. And that's super funny. Like, who doesn't want a motivational pep talk from Dan Campbell, honestly? Like, who doesn't? Like, that would get anybody riled up and ready to run through a brick wall. So, just kind of a funny thing. But, yeah, he says he's going to go to the game on Thanksgiving and he's going to ask Dan Campbell to come speak to the Detroit Red Wings when the Lions season is over. So, I guess we'll have an update on that next week on if he accepts that invite or not. But kind of funny, yeah.
It's just funny. It's goofy. It's nonsense. And it's a slow news day. So
people that are, if you're a Detroit Red Wings fan that's not a fan of the rest of the teams in this city, then I guess it doesn't really matter to you. But obviously a large majority of Wings fans are fans of the other three teams in town. And it's always just cool optically just to see whether it's the front offices or the players or the head coaches / managers, whatever, to all, I don't know, we've seen GMs go around and talk to each other. We've seen head coaches in the past. We've seen my Twitter header is literally Yzerman, Dumars, Cecil Fielder, and Barry Sanders, all in Tiger Stadium together. It's those kind of moments are just for the city, it's just cool. So yeah, not a story at all, but fun to talk about at least.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then another thing that's kind of anecdotal and it just builds on a conversation we had in a previous episode right before the season started regarding Dylan Larkin. Prashanth Iyer tweeted out yesterday, I believe it was, that since the start of last season, so the 2021-22 season, top 10 centers and expected goals above replacement per 60 minutes with greater than 1,000 minutes played at center include these 10 players: Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, Patrice Bergeron, Steven Stamkos, Brock Nelson, Jack Eichel, Leon Draisaitl, Evgeny Malkin, Jack Hughes, and at number 10, Dylan Larkin. So that is quite literally elite company to be in for the most part. And this is more or less just more proof that furthers our argument that Dylan Larkin needs to get paid. And it's a little, I won't call it concerning, but it's a little interesting to note that Dylan Larkin has yet to not just sign a contract, but to really hear anything on the contract front. And I know that Steve Yzerman normally keeps his cards to his chest, but he's going to be a UFA this year, and he's the captain of your team. And which is why, for the most part, I have full confidence Dylan Larkin is going to remain here, because the Red Wings don't give people a captaincy if they're not going to be here for a long time. And I think that furthers the argument that he's probably going to be, in my estimation, between $8.5 and $10 million a year for what's the maximum you can re-sign with the same team, 8 years.
Yeah, no, and like you said, that's something that we've talked about before, and we'll probably continue bringing up throughout the season until it happens. But at this point, I don't think there's any shadow of a doubt in really anyone's mind that he is going to get a long-term extension. It was cool to see. Prashanth is just the man, so it's just cool to see any stat that validates, or any number, or any clip, or anything that validates Dylan Larkin being really good. I mean, we talk about every single game recap. We talk about the fact that he's, just over a point a game right now, and how good of a season he's having. So yeah, he's the captain of the team, and that wasn't a previous regime thing either. Like, that was Steve Yzerman chose him to be the captain of the Detroit Red Wings. Like, there are some stuff that, if you inherit it, it's a different conversation or whatnot. Not like, no, this was Yzerman was well established and had been here for a little bit by the time that he decided to name Larkin the captain. So I have zero doubt that he's going to get extended. I completely agree with you. I think numbers like that just reiterate that. I think I said, what did I say? 875 to 925,
something like that.
Is that what I said? I was somewhere around there. But again, we'll have this conversation, I'm sure, maybe even a couple more times until pen hits paper. But yeah, we never hear any updates ever, because that's an Yzerman front office for you. And
Right.
Right. That's just how he runs the show. And yeah, it'll definitely be something to try and keep an eye on if we do get any nibbles on some news going forward. But for the time being, it's just reiterating the fact that he deserves the money that he's likely going to get, and that he is going to be the captain of this team for a long time. I don't think anyone should worry about that.
And there's two other things to consider as well. And, I throw out a number like 10 million. And for a lot of people, like, oh my God, you can't pay Dylan Larkin 10 million. He's not worth $10 million. You got to keep in mind that the salary cap is going up by a lot in the next couple seasons. And there have been some reports that say it's going up a lot sooner than we expected. As well. Like, the original estimate we saw was 2 or 3 seasons, but by now it's going to go up. I can't remember the number. I think it was like $9 million. And some estimates that have come out since then say it could be as soon as next year. It jumps up like 4 or 5. It's going to rise year over year, but the amount it rises year over year here is varying, and it's just how soon it's going to jump. What's up?
Do you remember?
No, I don't remember anything.
I'm using a different sport analogy again, but like, do you remember when Stafford became the highest paid quarterback in the NFL and everybody freaked out?
And then the next,
it was like, oh my goodness, like, this is so ridiculous. He doesn't deserve this. Look at this stat, this stat, this stat. And then within 12 months, he was like the 6th highest paid, because the cap went up a cajillion dollars. And then now he's like a middle of the pack-ish, slightly higher than middle of the pack paid QB. Like,
yeah, that's how it works.
That's I'm not saying that Larkin's going to get like 13 mil or anything like that, but if you look at it and you're like, oh my goodness, like 9.5, like that's an overpay, or 10, that's an overpay. Like, but by year 2 of his presumably like 5 to 7 year deal, you will no longer view it as an overpay.
I mean, precisely. That's exactly it. I mean, you pay him 9.5 now, and you think that's an overpay, but you still have a ton of cap space. And, well, not a ton, but you have like $11 million in cap space. You have expiring deals that you're probably not going to re-up, like Pew Suter. And then so with that cap space going up, that in 2 or 3 years, or in 6 or 7 years, especially nearing the end of that, that's not going to be a huge contract anymore. It's still going to be sizable, but it's not going to be a huge contract anymore. And then also, the other point I wanted to bring up before I was so rudely interrupted by Scott Bentley over there. I'm just kidding. I love you. was that
Was
I'm
BetOnline?
so sick and tired of the narrative that he is like not a 1C. And we talked about this as well. It's another thing. Like, again, this conversation is a conversation we've had before, and we're going to continue to have until he signs until that pen is to paper, as you put it. He has been an elite company in many statistics for a long time now, but because his point total doesn't reflect that, because he's been oft injured, people think he's a 2C. And he doesn't play great defense. And I'm not going to try and say that he does. And I would love if eventually he came alive as an elite defensive player. But the offensive production that he does play outweighs the subpar defense that he, seems to lack. And it's not horrible defense by any imagination. He plays good center, but it's not like elite level two-way game. But this is exactly this statistic right here is expected goals above replacement, which factors in goals for and goals against. He is producing goals at a higher rate than he is allowing them. He's leading the team at 5-on-5 plus minus goal differential. So he's +9. So he's clearly producing more goals.
Just about everything right
now. So Dylan Larkin, I won't try and say like if we had Austin Matthews would be the 1C. Like there's no doubt.
There's a misconception that 1C means that like
elite.
He would be the 1C on any team in hockey. And like being a 1C on a team doesn't mean that nobody in the league is better than you, or that like no matter what. There's a difference between like, oh, you're in the group of like the 5 or 8 or 10 best players of any position in the game of hockey versus like you could be a 1C on a competitive like championship winning team. Like those are not mutually exclusive things.
Exactly. He'd be a number 1C on at least half these teams in the league right now. So he is a 1C on this team, and he deserves to be so. But that's going to wrap up that conversation unless you have any other points.
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Let's go ahead to break number 1 here and talk to you guys today about Athletic Greens. This next product partner is a product you're going to use every single day. Start taking AG1 because with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of those things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, and no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting super good. AG1 is small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take care of yourself. Your subscription comes with a year's supply of vitamin D, which is so important to add in these winter months when you don't get as much sunlight. Athletic Greens is a climate neutral certified company. In 2020, AG purchased carbon credits that support projects protecting old growth rainforests. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. And all you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's move now into our game preview of the Nashville Predators. And this is more previewing the preview in a sense. The Red Wings have had 2 off days, so they've had 2 practices. And in both practices, the lines have remained the same, but also in a different way than what we've seen from the games. They're different lines, but they were the same in both practices. What were those lines?
Yeah, 2 days in a row now. The top 6 is really, I think, where a lot of the conversation comes from. But there's also, I think, discussion to be had about the 4th line too. But so on back-to-back days, the lines have been. This is Ansar Khan, by the way, the M Live reporter for the Detroit Red Wings. Great follow on the Bird app. Tweeted out that the lines 2 days in a row. Top line was Kubalik, Larkin, Perron. Then second line was Bertuzzi, Kopp, Raymond. Third was Ernie, Rasmussen, Sundqvist. And fourth was Bergeron, Veleno, Suter. And then defensive pairings is pretty much what we've seen all year. Sherrod, Sider, Mata, Hronek, Wallman, Oster laid down in the third. So And there's a couple of cool, like seeing the power play units as well is kind of unique. But I think the like you said, the top six, while it's been the same 2 days in a row in practice, is notably different than we are used to so far this season. And I think that that's where this conversation starts. Anything that puts Kubalik and Larkin together, I'm going to be a fan of just because that seems like instant offense on a line. And I think that that's a good move in Perron. Well, he started off hot, then production wise slowed down a little bit, but has still been a very steady and great addition to this team, obviously. But the second line, I'm really pumped for. I think surrounding Andrew Kopp, which is somebody who we've talked about, has gotten off to a little bit of a slower start offensive production wise. Putting him on a line with Raymond, who's been red hot lately, and Bertuzzi, who's back and healthy and is kind of instant offense and kind of wreaks havoc and helps anybody he plays with. I think that's beautiful.
I agree on some regard. I disagree on others. I'm not so sure I like the idea of putting Raymond on line 2. I know they've done it in the past and it's been fine. But just after last year, I'm like staunchly against the line blender. And you finally found some chemistry in the last 2 games with your offensive production, especially the game against Columbus. And I understand Columbus is one of the worst teams in the league right now.
As is San Jose.
And San Jose, and you put up good 5-on-5 numbers against Columbus. So you have to take it with a grain of salt against teams like that. But you're basically just swapping the winger pairs on lines 1 and 2, giving Bertuzzi and Raymond to Kopp. And I understand the idea. Kopp's not necessarily, so he's not getting goals, but he does have 10 points in 18 games. So he's a little over half point per game, which is honestly a little kind of in the range you were expecting Kopp to produce at. You wanted, I think, a little bit more goals, but
sure.
we knew when they signed him, he was going to be a defense first, second line center. You signed him primarily for his face-off wins, really, and he unfortunately hasn't provided that. But his offensive production, if you look at his point total, isn't really that far behind, if at all, his career totals, his career pacing.
Sure.
Last year he had a career year, so it might be a little unfair to expect him to replicate that immediately. So I don't necessarily know if you needed to swap wingers. Now, I'm not so against it that I'm not willing to try it, because I think that, like you said, Kubalik and Perron does provide a lot of they have great chemistry, and putting them on a line with a generator like Larkin who can finish in his own right, that could be a very lethal line. And obviously Raymond is a guy who can make things happen. Bertuzzi is a guy who can make things happen, and Kopp's a guy who can make things happen. So you put those 3 together, I think it's still going to be an effective top 6. But I don't see the need to shake up the chemistry when the chemistry seems to be doing okay as is.
Yeah, I think I'm a fan of it. I really like it. And again, that doesn't mean that I think that this should just be like the top 6 for the remainder of the season. But I think, again, with how much we talk about the inconsistency of this team and with how much we talk about their struggling on 5-on-5 play, and we said it just a couple episodes ago, like them beating and outplaying 5-on-5, 2 of the worst teams in the NHL, does not make me like change my opinion of what's needed to improve the 5-on-5 play. Like, I don't care. Like, that's great. And it's a step, like a start, but it's like a very long way away for me to be like, oh yeah, like we should just like not touch these lines anymore because they outplayed the Columbus Blue Jackets 5-on-5. So like, I'm totally down to like continue moving. And I just feel like line 2 really just intrigues me a lot. And I understand like the optics of like you want Raymond to be like a first line winger, and that's like what everybody thinks his ceiling is, and I agree with that.
I mean, it is his ceiling. I don't even know if it's his ceiling. It might just be his floor at this point with how well he's been playing.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. But I think this is similar to, and I know that it happened to Bertuzzi again here, but I think this is similar to last year when they moved Bertuzzi down a line.
Yeah.
Even though his production was fine, just because like, oh, we want more than one line to be able to score. Like, I mean, I think pretty objectively, like Bertuzzi, Kopp, and Raymond is like a really a higher ceiling second line than maybe we've seen this season, or at least has the ability to be. And I'm very much willing to try it. I like it a lot.
I think the most interesting part of these 2 dynamics in the top 6, as we've seen in back-to-back practices here, is the style of game that they each play. Because Larkin is, I mean, he gets both assists and goals, but he is an offense first kind of guy. I already remarked
Sure.
on his, not super impressive defensive capabilities. Not bad, but not like primary goal in his mind. Kubalik, we know, is noted as just horribly defensively. You deploy him specifically to shoot the puck, score on the rush, score on the power play. Perron, similar. Perron's better at defense than Kubalik, but he's another power play guy, shoot the puck guy. He's a great passer in the offensive zone. So it seems like line number one is going out there primarily to score your goals. Like that is your glass cannon line, so to speak. You're scoring on the rush, setting up in the offensive zone. And then line two, Tyler Bertuzzi's a truly guy. He can do it on both sides of the puck. We've noted that already. Lucas Raymond can play both sides of the puck and is very good at gap control and playing off the puck and finding out where to go to intercept the puck. And Andrew Kopp is a defensive-minded forward. So it's almost like line one is meant to be a glass cannon line, while line two is meant to be your, securing the 5-on-5 possession and pacing line.
Yeah. Sure. I think that Bertuzzi's style just helps any line.
Oh, absolutely.
No matter what.
No,
like
yeah.
so much that if you having that plus the ability to have more of a ISO score or like a shooter like Raymond
ISO.
I mean, like he kind of has the ability to be an ISO scorer sometimes, but like my point is just I think those two paired with Kopp, who is not going to go out and average like a point a game or fill up, be a prolific goal scorer. I think those two with Kopp, he can help on the defensive side, and the two of them can provide offense, and Kopp can be a really nice facilitator to those two. I like it. And again, I'm not saying that this should just be like the top six forever, but I am in a season in which we are trying so many different things to find some sort of combination that equates to consistent offensive pressure. I'm willing to give this a try. Absolutely.
All right. Sounds good. When we come back, we'll transition into the game itself, comparing the two teams, their numbers, and how we think that game's going to go as Red Wings look to make it 3 in a row when we come back on Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's talk about the Nashville Predators game that's coming up tonight by the time people are listening to this. And the Nashville Predators so far this season are fourth in the Central Division. They're 9-8-2. They're not great. They're not bad either. They're just okay, I would argue. Their power play is what do we say it was like way down at the bottom of the league? I'm on the wrong tab here. I gotta find it.
Yeah, the power play is in the bottom 7 or 8 in the league.
28th in the league. And their penalty kill is what, 12th?
Yeah.
So they've got a decent penalty kill. They're seventh, sorry. They got a good penalty kill, but they got a really bad power play. So when you're looking at the Nashville Predators, how's it looking head to head?
I think there's a few things to keep in mind. One is that this team loves penalties. Like the Nashville Predators are very high up there in PIMS and like a borderline top 10 team and like most PIMS a game. And the Detroit Red Wings, for as much as we've talked about the improvement that's still needed on their special teams, they don't draw too many penalties in comparison to the rest of the league. So that's something. And we've talked about our power play and how it's one of the main sources of offense we have so far this season with how much our 5-on-5 has struggled. So I think that's definitely the first thing to look at is take advantage of the penalties they give you. If they're in the box the whole game, take advantage. Like I think that's probably the biggest thing that pops out to me from the Nashville side of things. The other big one is the Preds are one of the best teams in the face-off circle in the NHL, and you're one of the worst. And that is not exactly a recipe for success, but it's something we've talked about all year. And a lot of times, even though we have consistently been at the bottom of the NHL in the face-off circle, if we're playing like a middle-of-the-road team, sometimes we can overcome it. But
9-5-2?
Nashville's not just like, oh, like they're 15th or 12th. Like that's a borderline top 5 team in the NHL when it comes to their success in the faceoff circle, and you are in the bottom 3 or 4 in the NHL. So
Yeah. I think that so they take a lot of penalties, which is great because the Red Wings power play is 16th in the league, which isn't horrible, but it's not great. It's a massive improvement over last year. 16th in the league is if they finish the season now and they finish the season 16th in the league on power play, I would call that a success
I would
because that is
too,
a
absolutely.
massive improvement.
Yeah, if you finished it right in the middle compared to the last 3 years, yes, that's obviously a massive win.
But if you look at one thing that the Predators do well, and I mean, you already said it, but their penalty kill is great. So while they take a ton of penalties, they can afford to because their penalty kill is phenomenal. Now, like I used to say with the Red Wings before their goalless streak, goals against goalless against streak on the penalty kill. How do I phrase that? You get what I'm trying to say. Was snapped.
They went on a streak in which they didn't give up a goal.
Yeah, at the start of the season on the penalty
Right.
kill. Eventually your bend don't break is going to break. And so if you keep taking lots of penalties, eventually you're going to get scored on. And the Red Wings having a decent power play is nice. They also, Red Wings themselves, have the 13th best penalty kill. So they're in the upper echelon of the league too, the top half of the league on the penalty kill. So while, to my surprise, as you just said, they don't take a lot of penalties because it feels like they take a ton. They got a pretty good penalty kill themselves. So I look at this Nashville Predators team, Scotty, and they feel a lot like the Detroit Red Wings, but on the opposite side of their, I won't say rebuild. The Red Wings are going up and the Predators are sliding down. Their window has closed and they're slowly getting worse, falling into a rebuild in my eyes. They're carried by good goaltending. They have 5 games from Kevin Lankinen. He's got a 921 save percentage. UC Saros, their starter's got 15 games played. He's got a 905 save percentage, so he's been okay. But they're a team that doesn't score a lot of goals offensively. They got just one player in Forsberg that's over a point per game, followed up by, of course, Roman Josi, who's a phenomenal, one of the best defensemen in the league. He's just under a point per game, but they don't have a ton of scoring on their roster. So I view them as a team that's very similar to the Detroit Red Wings in that regard, where their goaltending is keeping pace. Their scoring has a couple of guys at the top, and after that, it kind of drops off. And their penalty kill and power play are just meh. Power play for the Predators, notably, is a lot worse, but they seem to be in the same okayish zone. So this is a very winnable game for the Detroit Red Wings, especially as the first game on a homestand coming off of back-to-back wins where you should be riding momentum.
Yeah, I mean, just as a unit this year, the Red Wings offense is better. Like we said, their power play is slightly better. Like this is absolutely a game that you can win, and it's at home. I like it. I think BetOnline has both the teams as like almost a push. Like they're very close in or just even, and they might both be minus money actually at the moment. But
They are.
yeah, so that shows you how close this game and how close outsiders that aren't involved with these two organizations view this game. And yeah, I think that this is super winnable, and this is a big. I don't want to sound like a broken record and just be like, oh, like you need to win like every like toss up game or game you're better than, but like
get pucks deep,
again,
boys.
if you want to be able to like afford to lose to like the Leafs and the Bruins and etc. If you want to like have those losses be like way more acceptable and like much easier to swallow, you have to beat the teams that you're either better than and then steal a few toss-up games that are like 50-50 games. And this will certainly help that. I mean, you have a better record. Like you're I don't know. This feels like
It
a
should be a
game
win.
that they absolutely should win again. You're at home, like I said. I don't know. Husso, assuming that he's in net after a few games off as well. I'm not really sure there's going to be too much of an excuse to not win this game.
They're a middle of the pack team, and our argument is the Red Wings are this year as well. That's a success for the Red Wings, is to be a middle of the pack team. So this is a winnable game. You should go out there and you should play this game close, and you should win it to just kind of further that proof. And like I said, home game, first of a homestand, coming off of a road trip where you won the last 2, won them in big fashion. You have the momentum on your side. The
Right.
Predators They just snapped, or they didn't snap a losing streak. They lost one of the Tampa Bay Lightning, then beat the Coyotes, which, oh boy, you beat the Coyotes. Big whoop. I shouldn't say that after the whooping the Coyotes put on the Red Wings last year. But they're one of the worst teams in the league. So this is the cards are in your hand. The ball's in your court. This is your opportunity to, make a statement win. Like this is where we can beat more than just the bottom tier teams. We can beat the middle tier teams. I don't know what kind of statement it is, but they need to win. They have to win. They got to prove that this is.
It's certainly a statement.
They can do more than just the crappy teams.
Right. Exactly that. It's certainly a statement if you beat. I'll tell you something. Middle of the road teams is a majority of the NHL.
Yes,
there's a few
precisely.
outliers. Right. There's a few outliers at the very bottom. There's a few outliers at the very, very top. And the rest of like the 70% of the league is all middle of the road. So if you can beat middle of the road and not just get all your wins against the Jackets and the Sharks and the Coyotes and the Hawks, then like that's certainly a statement. And you're going to play yourself into contention later in the season.
Absolutely. Okay. So the over-under of this game is set to 6. The Red Wings have hit the over in the last 2 games after hitting the under for, I felt like forever. How are you feeling? Are you thinking they regress to the mean and they hit the under again? Or you think they're going to hit the over and just continue that momentum and score big goals?
I'm going with the under.
See, I'm going to go with the over in this one. I think that they carry that momentum and they do play good 5-on-5.
You would take the over.
It would be a little okay. I mean, I was going to take the over regardless, but it would be a little boring if we just consistently agreed on over under.
I don't think we have lately.
Not a whole lot. You kept taking the over when they kept hitting the under, and now you flip flopped and I flip flopped.
Yeah, I'm like that.
Yeah, contrarian is what they call you.
No, I'm gonna go with the under though. Especially if Husso's in that, and I know that's like a really like broken record, like obvious thing to say, but
915 save percentage, baby.
Right. It's tough to see Husso in that and the Wings just like single-handedly scoring enough goals to hit the over a lot of nights. So yeah, I'll take this is a really good opponent or a really bad goalie we're going up against. So I'll take the under in this one. Yeah,
absolutely. So we will be back tomorrow to recap this game. It'll be a Thanksgiving episode technically for everyone. I guess we should probably announce too that we will not have a Black Friday episode because we record the day before and we are not recording on Thanksgiving. So it will be off this Friday, but there will be an episode on Thanksgiving going up at our usual time on midnight as we will record after the game. So stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.